Marcus Wright, played by Sam Worthington, was suggested to McG by James Cameron himself, and Worthington did an amazing job with this surprisingly complex character. In essence, Wright was a criminal who dedicated his body after his death to a cause that he saw greater than himself, but he was brought back as a machine, with the intent that he would fight for Skynet. Against all odds, even as a part-machine hybrid, Marcus Wright never lost his humanity, and this is his story. In this video, we'll be exploring the entire life of Marcus Wright before exploring a bit of his anatomy and what made him the tool that changed the dynamic of the war between man and machine. Before we begin, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks will help us tremendously in bringing you these marvelous videos in the future. And now, let's begin. A Kiss for a Body. Marcus Wright was born on August 22, 1975, but soon found himself in a life of crime before he even left his teens. He stole cars with his brother Sam, sought quick cash, and obviously cared little for the warnings he received from his friends, family, and law enforcement. One night, a botched carjacking left 2 police officers dead and Sam fatally wounded. Officers caught Marcus at the scene. A jury found him guilty of multiple homicide, and the court shipped him to Longview State Correctional Facility for execution. During his months on death row, a frail yet driven scientist, Dr. Serena Kogan of Cyberdyne Systems, visited the cell block. Cancer drained her body, yet her mind was sharp. She asked Marcus to donate his remains to Project Angel, a genetic cybernetic study that promised a new breed of soldiers. Thomas Parnell, an inmate from another state, had already signed up, but Marcus rejected the offer each time. On the morning of the lethal injection, he wavered though, and decided that he would in fact give away his body to a cause greater than himself. However, he wasn't going to do it for free. As a man on death row without the possibility of release, what do you think he wanted in exchange for giving away his own body? Well, he agreed to do so in exchange for a final kiss. He signed the document, thereby placing his fate in her hands, and walked to the chamber. Coming back to life in a dead world. The guards attached Marcus to a cross-shaped gurney before a small crowd of friends and relatives. A clear fluid crept through the IV line. Interestingly, whether his heart stopped or the drug pushed him into a deep coma remains unproven, so there's quite a possibility that the lethal injection didn't quite kill him, but for the sake of convenience and what the movie shows, we believe that he did indeed die that day. Regardless, Cyberdyne technicians collected the body, wheeled it away to a hidden lab, and began a surgery that would change his body, and in fact, even his life, forever. They stripped away ruined tissue, replaced bone with alloy, threaded cables through muscle, and kept the brain and heart alive in an armored chest. Marcus Wright, human, became a hybrid prototype that still carried his beating heart and conscious mind. We'll be honest, the whole metal for bones part does remind us a bit of our guy Wolverine. No, just us? Alright, moving on. Judgment Day arrived while our experiment rested in cryogenic storage far below the desert sand. 15 years passed in silence. In 2018, TechCom commandos blew apart the Skynet VLA compound. After the explosions faded and night settled, power surged through Marcus's cortex. He gasped awake on a slab surrounded by corpses, his file tagged as scrap. Mud coated his skin, rain hammered the ruins, and a guttural scream tore free as he staggered into the open, confused, bewildered, and broken. Finding friends. He found a fallen resistance fighter, stripped the man of his clothes, and followed a sand-clogged highway toward shattered Los Angeles. From the twisted Hollywood sign, he stared at gutted skyscrapers, then stepped into cracked streets. Here, a hulking Series 600 Terminator lumbered through the mist of disaster and mayhem, looking for more humans to kill, looking for more resistance members to dismember. Marcus thought it was a man and shouted. The machine swiveled and opened fire with a minigun. Bullets chewed concrete, but before they reached Marcus's flesh, a teenage scavenger slammed into Marcus and dragged him behind rubble. The boy, Kyle Reese, warned that survival meant constant movement. Together they sprinted while the T-600 ripped free of a snare trap that Kyle had rigged. On a nearby rooftop, Kyle's mute partner, a young girl named Star, dropped a railcar bogey that flattened the metal brute long enough for everyone to escape. Kyle pointed a shotgun at Marcus and demanded answers. Marcus disarmed him and asked the date. Shock crossed Kyle's face as he explained that Judgment Day happened on the 29th of August, 1997, and Skynet now hunted every human. Marcus wanted a path to a Skynet facility. Kyle insisted on a safe hideout. An aerial hunter-killer suddenly swept low, toppled a wall, and forced them to flee to Kyle's shelter. Inside, Marcus showed Kyle how to wire the shotgun to his forearm so a Terminator couldn't snatch it. He also brought a broken radio back to life and caught a broadcast from John Connor, the voice that many survivors followed. Soon, dawn arrived, and the trio slipped from the city and hiked towards the Griffith Observatory, hoping to find transport. On the run! At the observatory, Marcus repaired an old Jeep so that they could move forward in their journey. However, a frayed wire had sliced into his palm, and Star was quick to put a bandage on the cut. When the engine coughed to life, the radio also crackled and, to everyone's surprise, started playing Rooster by Alice in Chains, a song Marcus once listened to through cheap speakers, but he didn't enjoy it any longer. Why? Well, he killed the tunes because it was his late brother's favorite song, and listening to it only brought the ghosts of Christmas past. Marcus didn't want any of it any longer, so he ordered Star out of the passenger seat. Moments later, an aerostat drone swooped down. Kyle weaved downhill to shake it off, but to no avail, as the craft held position until Marcus smashed its sensor pod with a tire iron. This sent the shards through the air and dropped the drone into scrub. Wasting no time, they all moved forward, only to come across a lonely gas station that was marked with a faded resistance emblem. In times of turmoil, people hold on to even the slightest ray of hope, so they chose to go inside, where they found a band of wary survivors. These guys surrounded the newcomers, and their leader, Virginia, offered water and food, though a man named Len didn't quite appreciate that. I mean, it makes sense for people in a world with this kind of state to be wary of strangers, even if the strangers aren't necessarily bad guys. They are simply more mouths to feed. Moving on, before anybody could settle down and accept the new state of affairs, Star crouched and felt vibrations coming from under the floorboards. In no time, a colossal harvester burst through the roof and seized Virginia along with 2 refugees. Now, it doesn't take a Batman to figure out that chaos followed after the group's leader was stolen. Cars bolted towards the highway, and the harvester's plasma cannon turned them into molten scrap. Kyle saw the pattern and warned everyone that running away in cars would mean death because the plasma cannon tracks and destroys cars. Marcus analyzed the situation, jumped into an armored tow truck, and rammed a fuel tanker against the machine's legs. Soon, metal groaned, balance failed, and the giant machine toppled to the ground. Knocked down but not knocked out. Kyle fired at the spreading petrol, but the shotgun failed to spark it. Star handed Marcus a flare and he shot it right towards the machine, and a wall of flame engulfed the toppled walker, and still the beast of a machine was not destroyed outright. 2 sleek Moto Terminators shot out from a hatch in the harvester's torso and gave chase. Marcus pushed the truck's accelerator flat. Meanwhile, Kyle lined up a slug and shattered the first bike's sensor array. The wreck skidded, spun, and almost flung the teenager under a school bus, but Marcus grabbed his jacket and hauled him clear. The second chaser was still closing in on them. Marcus shouted for the tow hook, and Kyle dropped the heavy ball until it sparked across broken asphalt. Smoke drifted across the roadway as the truck came to a stop. Star peered at Marcus and noticed metallic ribs shining through torn fabric. Marcus, too, noticed his reflection in a shattered mirror and saw steel beneath bloodied skin. He realized Skynet scouts had ignored him because the network ranked him as property, not prey. Confusion met anger. He felt human, yet metal fibers pulsed under his flesh. Needless to say, he had made the most shocking discovery about himself and just could not come to terms with the fact that he had been turned into a half-machine, half-man creature, a hybrid, a cyborg. He was a good guy at heart, but he had the characteristics of the bad guys. Second chances! Moving on, the runaway truck roars onto a narrow bridge and slams to a stop when an HK aerial drops out of the clouds and blasts the road deck. The sudden brakes whips the trailer around, and behind them, the Moto Terminator was still in hot pursuit, and it arcs up over the HK's nose and clips one of the gunship's engines. Smoke trails from the rotor as the HK staggers, but the truck skids out of control and teeters over the guardrail. Kyle, Reese, and Star tumble from the cab straight into the steel claws of a harvester that awaits atop an HK carrier trundling below. The damaged HK shakes free of the moto, leaps back, and hammers the truck with plasma. Marcus Wright leaps clear, lands on the carrier's deck with an axe, and hacks at the cages that now hold Kyle and Star. The harvester seizes him and slams his body against the hull. Meanwhile, two Resistance A-10 Warthogs scream in, pepper the transport with missiles, and draw its guns away. Blair Williams flies the lead jet. Amid the barrage, the Harvester drops Marcus and he plummets into the river far below. The HK aerial recovers, shoots down both jets, and the carrier rumbles off with its prisoners. Marcus drags himself onto the muddy bank, staggers through scrub, and spots a dangling parachute on a broken telephone tower. Blair dangles from this harness, alive but trapped. He climbs the lattice, cuts her free, and lowers her to safety. Grateful, she offers to guide him to John Connor, who may help retrieve Kyle and Star from Skynet Central. They hike until night and shelter at a deserted racetrack. Rain hisses on busted grandstands as Blair takes off her jacket and shirt to clean a cut on her collarbone. Unsurprisingly, Marcus stares at her semi-naked body. He did spend the last years of his life in prison, after all. While he gathers dry wood, a band of scavengers ambushes Blair for her supplies. Marcus charges back, floors two men with his fists, and drives a screwdriver into a third man's shoulder. Blood streams in the drizzle, and the attackers, they retreat. Later, Blair curls around Marcus for warmth by the fire and listens to his heartbeat. She whispers that it sounds strong, more like a thunder than a pulse. He stares at the flames and wonders if a man like him deserves a second chance. Meeting the Connors! Dawn brings them to the main Resistance outpost, hidden behind a magnetized minefield. These had been placed to kill the machines, and unlike regular mines, they weren't triggered by pressure, but by metal. Anyways, Marcus was metal inside, and one of the mines attaches itself to him before exploding. Although he saves Blair from the explosion, he is heavily injured. However, we must note that he wasn't really feeling any great pain and claimed that he was fine. He's brought to the infirmary where Kate Connor cuts open his shirt and finds metal ribs under new tissue. Barnes steps in, knocks him out with a rifle butt, and the rest chain him to a missile silo. The Resistance guys believed that Marcus was one of the machines and was there to do the worst, and, let's be honest, it was the only logical thing to think. John Connor is soon informed of the development and arrives on the scene. Kate reports that Marcus has living skin, a human heart, rapid healing, yet he also had an endoskeleton and an implant near the brainstem. Marcus swears he's a human, which is when John lowers the chain holding Marcus's head to let him see steel where bone should be present. Horror floods his face once again, but he still refuses the label machine. John had become convinced that Skynet billed Marcus to assassinate the entire Resistance command, including John, and during the course of that conversation, he mentions Kyle Reese. The name rings a bell in Marcus's head, and he reveals to John about Kyle's capture and his own plan to break him out. Earning John's trust by saving him, John Connor leaves Barnes to guard the captive. Barnes, angry about a brother who died during the VLA raid, fires a pistol round into Marcus's chest. Blair arrives and tells Barnes that John wanted to see him, then shoots Marcus herself, which was only a ruse to fool Barnes. When Barnes exits, she lowers Marcus, unlocks his shackles, and they sprint into a duct. Barnes returns, empties a rocket at them, but the blast kicks them clear. They crawl out near the minefield while Resistance troops converge. Blair unspools a cable with a strong magnet and drags it across the dirt. Mines attach, explode in sequence, and carve a safe lane. A rocket wipes out the waiting jeep, so they dash to a concrete wall. Marcus raises his hands to draw fire while Blair snipes the floodlight, and darkness swallows them. A stray round rips through Blair's thigh, but Marcus pulls her under cover, wraps her wound, and hands her his coat to confuse the attackers. A patrol captures Blair, and Marcus jacks a dirt bike, throttles hard, and jumps the outer fence. Meanwhile, John's helicopter lights him up and rains lead. A napalm canister bursts in the trees and fire washes over him, but the hybrid lives. However, Hydrobots attack John and his men, destroying the helicopter in the process. Marcus wades in, though, and tears apart the last Hydrobots, dragging John to shore. John levels a pistol at Marcus's heart with the intention of killing him once and for all, but Marcus proposes a deal John could not refuse. He asks John to let him enter Skynet alone, and he will open a path for Connor to rescue Kyle. John reluctantly agrees and hands over a compact radio and accepts. Resistance jeeps arrive as Marcus slips into the current and swims away. Learning his purpose. The true purpose. Marcus reaches San Francisco's perimeter at dusk. Auto turrets target him, scan his signature, and grant passage. He commands the northern turrets to stand down and pings Kyle's location to John, now waiting outside the ruins of the Golden Gate. He digs into archived footage. He watches his own execution records, sees Serena's final journal, and finds that her project passed to the US Air Force a few months before she died of cancer. Each file opens like a wound. The data surge overloads his nervous system. Circuits flare, vision blurs, and Marcus collapses on the steel floor while Skynet's red eye narrows its gaze on the man who carries a heart of flesh yet marches with feet of iron. Marcus wakes in a diagnostic chair, skin flawless, clothes now plain white. Ready to breathe with relief at the sight of his restored body, he stares at a screen that flickers to life. Skynet greets him through the calm face of Dr. Serena Kogan and calls him home. The machine outlines his role as the perfect infiltrator and that his purpose was to find Kyle Reese, lure John Connor, and stand aside while a prototype T-800, Skynet calls it the T-RIP, finishes the Resistance leader. Marcus watches CCTV footage of John locked in brutal combat with the Chrome Giant below. Disgust burns through him. He had been used as a pawn, a mere tool at the hands of Skynet. But as John Connor once said in The Dark Knight, one man's tool is another man's weapon. Okay, that wasn't John Connor, it was Christian Bale as Batman, but Marcus rips the interface plug from his skull, spits defiance, and vows to save John. Skynet tries once more to sway him, promising him freedom from human weakness. Marcus answers by smashing the glass and sprinting towards the factory buried under the complex. In the hall of assembly lines, he sees John caught in the T-RIP's iron grip. Marcus slams the monster, knocks both of them to the ground, and buys John a minute to crawl clear. The Terminator throws him aside. Molten steel splashes across Marcus's left hand, stripping flesh to reveal alloy. The ultimate sacrifice! Pain sharpens Marcus's resolve. He tackles the Terminator from behind, shoves it against a live pylon, then tears off a length of railing and clubs the machine. The T-RIP traps his wrist, kicks him across the deck, and turns back to John, who pulls power cells from an incomplete torso to build an improvised bomb. Marcus decides someone must stall the killer. He steps between John and the Terminator and lets it pummel him with a concrete block. Internal scanners detect his beating heart, the sole organic weak point. A single piston-driven punch of the T-RIP cuts the rhythm of the beating heart short. Marcus slumps, lifeless. John drags a cable, jabs the copper into Marcus's chest, and fires a surge. Marcus's heart shudders, then thumps. Breath returns. Rage follows soon after, as John had been impaled in the chest. He rips the steel bar from John's torso, snaps it in two, and decapitates the T-RIP with one sweep. With the threat silent, Marcus lifts John, carries him up the stairwell, and meets Barnes, who helps him heave the wounded leader into a helicopter beside Kyle and Starr. Moments later, John triggers the bomb, and Skynet Central erupts in white fire beneath them. At the outpost, Kate Connor works to stem John's bleeding, but knows his heart can't last. Marcus watches, remembers Serena promised that his hybrid organs regenerate, and offers the only solution. Remove his heart, transplant it into John, and let the commander live. He lies on the table. Under Kate's steady hands, the heart transplant succeeds. Marcus's eyes close, purpose fulfilled, body laid to rest. Coming back to life again. Now, the events from here on are from the comics, so months pass. The artificial tissue in his chest seals and rebuilds while he was in the grave. Hybrid physiology is designed in a way that it refuses to die. Instead, it simply drifts into stasis. Buried in a lonely grave, Marcus hears distant code like a faint drum. Skynet, cornered by a new threat in the form of serial killer Thomas Parnell, sends a wake-up order. Electrosynthetic nerves flicker, and Marcus claws out of the earth with his heart regenerated and his mind groggy yet aware. Thomas Parnell had bonded to a rogue endoskeleton and hijacked portions of Skynet's core, and now threatens to burn both sides of the war. Marcus finds John and pledges support. Together, they lead a joint force of resistance fighters and loyal machine units against Parnell's horde. The campaign ends inside Skynet's main vault. John negotiates a truce with the supercomputer. Humanity and machines stop their hostilities against each other to rebuild a shattered world. Skynet consents. One final danger remains though, Terminator Parnell. He was sent into the labyrinth, programmed to kill John's bio-linked endoskeleton during the critical sync that beat Parnell. Marcus hunts the infiltrator through flickering corridors, knocks it offline, and drags it to a repair bay. John proposes destruction. Marcus suggests reprogramming. John agrees and hauls the blank slate unit to the lone time displacement chamber still intact. Dr. Kogan's hollow avatar aligns temporal coordinates. They will send the rewired Terminator to 2004 to guard John and Kate. When John asks why the machine must heed Kate's voice over his, Kogan explains his earlier death left no pre-war vocal patterns, and the new endoskeleton vocal filters would reject modern samples. The portal hums. Blue light swallows the protector unit and flings it into the past. Marcus stands beside John as they overload the temporal reactor. The chamber implodes, sealing the timeline and ending any chance of further interference. Sparks fade, silence settles. The long war, born of fear and steel, closes, not with annihilation, but with fragile partnership. Marcus, once condemned and repurposed, now walks forward with John toward a dawn neither machine nor man could win alone. That was pretty much the story of Marcus Wright, the man who was rebuilt with metal as a machine, but never lost his humanity. And now, let's explore the details of Marcus or a hybrid's anatomy. Anatomy of a hybrid. A hybrid, also called a TH or Theta, is a person who has crossed the line from flesh to machine. Project Angel started the idea inside Cyberdyne's genetics division. After Judgment Day, Skynet revived the work and renamed it Project Theta. Early trials on a hybrid mouse proved the concept in animals. Human trials followed, with Marcus Wright among the first volunteers. Surgeons removed his bones, replaced them with a hyperalloy frame, yet kept vital organs. Brains, eyes, and curiously, his gums and teeth, which may be prosthetic. The finished body came out stronger, quicker, and able to shrug off injuries that would kill an ordinary soldier. Skynet then used Marcus as an infiltration prototype in 2018. The plan? Send him to find Kyle Reese, draw John Connor to Skynet Central, and turn both into hybrids loyal to the machines. The scheme failed because Marcus's remaining humanity overpowered the control routines. He sided with the Resistance and helped cripple Skynet's core. Not every hybrid woke up free. Skynet built Baker's Hollow, a ghost village filled with hybrids. Jick, one of them, carried false memories that convinced him he was John Connor, showing how deeply Skynet could rewrite a mind. Hybrids keep many human traits. A pulse beats beneath the alloy ribs, and heavy impact can knock the subject unconscious. They feel pain, though the sensation spikes only at the moment of injury and fades fast, hinting at dampened nerve feedback. Regenerative tissue repairs cuts in hours, yet a hybrid still dies if enough bullets or blasts overwhelm the system. The living brain stores full memories. Marcus recalled every moment of his past because technicians seeded his brain inside the endoskeleton and linked it to Skynet. During interrogation, Skynet pulled those memories onto screen. The link also let Skynet copy, erase, or fabricate scenes as it did with Jick. Because the organs come from the original body, they remain points of failure. A hard blow to the heart can stop it, and that single organ drives both organic and cybernetic parts. When the heart stalls, the hybrid drops into a powered-down hibernation. Destroying the brain ends the subject for good. Endoskeleton. Each hybrid receives a custom frame built to cradle human organs. Unlike the chrome skulls of most Terminators, a TH skeleton copies human anatomy, complete with rib-like braces around the chest. The alloy recipe remains secret, but field tests prove its toughness. A landmine detonation at close range left Marcus's frame unscarred. Molten steel clung to the metal without melting through, much like the heat-proof hide of the T-RIP prototype. The frame delivers power equal to most frontline machines, falling only a notch below a Series 800 in terms of sheer force. Marcus ripped a Hydrobot in half and hurled a T-RIP across a room, feats that mark him as a threat even to an 800 unit. He runs faster than any human and turns with more agility than the T-RIP. The lighter build even lets him swim, a task impossible for standard Terminators that sink like anchors. Skynet Control Chip. A small control chip sits on the back of a hybrid's skull. The device mirrors the I-950 implants from the T2 trilogy timeline. Through this node, Skynet watches every sight the hybrid sees, whispers commands, and, if the code wins, steers the body like a puppet. Field command can pass to human collaborators such as Remy Lajard, who takes direct control during missions. A hybrid can also press a palm against a terminal and sync with Skynet's network. Later models manage wireless links, matching the connectivity found in regular Terminators. Living tissue. The flesh that coats a TH hybrid or an advanced Terminator matches real human tissue in look, feel, and function. If a section tears or a vital organ ruptures, specialized repair units can patch the wound, or the flesh will simply regrow on its own even when the subject lies in offline hibernation. As long as the brain remains intact, true death never arrives. The body waits, silent, while cells knit themselves back together. During such dormant periods, the skin neither ages nor decays. Early Terminators stood naked in polished steel. Skynet's first attempt to hide them, the T-600, wore crude rubber skin that fooled nobody. A breakthrough in bioengineering changed the battlefield. Scientists learned how to cultivate living tissue directly on metal. This discovery produced the T-800, the first infiltrator unit that could pass for a person at close range. Comic book lore fills in the extra details. Enemy of My Enemy credits Dr. Elise Fong's burn treatment research as the genetic template for Terminator flesh. To keep that artificial skin growing like a cancer, Fong encoded a viral kill switch that could necrotize the tissue when activated. Other branches of the saga note the T-799 as Skynet's initial testbed for true meat-covered machines, while the Salvation timeline ties the work to Project Angel, a government-funded program meant to aid soldiers with catastrophic wounds. That program gave rise to the TH hybrids, far more convincing than a T-800, but vulnerable because the organs under the skin remained largely unarmored. The Terminator RPG splits tissue development into 3 clear eras. Generation 1 flesh decays unless technicians bathe it non-stop in nutrient fluid. Generation 2 adopts self-sustaining tissue that ages in step with a human host. Generation 3 introduces bioplast skin, which repairs itself and shows no signs of aging. Specification. Because the outer sheath mirrors human biology, it sweats, breathes, bleeds, and even produces ordinary body odor. Some infiltrator units develop halitosis if they neglect dental care, further selling the disguise. Blood flows, though in modest volume. Extensive gunfire leaves small crimson leaks rather than fountains. The exact circulatory system remains a mystery, yet whatever pumps through those veins gives the skin color, warmth, and the power to heal. Necrosis. Early tissue models failed under prolonged stress. The original 1984 T-800 took repeated hits to its artificial heart, which starved the skin of oxygen. By the time it retreated to a safe house, its flesh had turned a waxy gray. Insects crawled across the decomposing cheeks, and a janitor complained about the stench. A dying sheath draws attention, something Skynet works hard to avoid. Regeneration. Repair, though, sits at the core of Terminator biology. When the 1984 unit removed bullets from its back, it calmly stated that the wounds would soon close. Guardians observed across decades confirm this claim. Acid stripped a Guardian's arm to bare metal. Years later, fresh tissue covered the limb. Cuts seal, scorched faces rebuild, and the scars fade. T-888 infiltrators, seen in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, push the process even further. Their outer layer knits within hours after severe damage, leaving faint marks that disappear soon after. These machines can lurk for decades without care. Myron Stark, a T-888, bricked himself behind a wall for 40 years, and the day he stepped out, his skin looked smooth and youthful. Writers suggest that T-888 units digest simple foods, mostly carbohydrates, to keep the organic layer robust. In the Salvation era, hybrids exhibit the peak of regeneration. Remove an organ and the body grows a new one as long as the brain survives. Offline hibernation does not slow the repair cycle, it pauses aging entirely. Aging! Not all flesh stays young. Guardians sent back to 1973 show wrinkles and gray hair by 1984. Fast forward to 2017, and the same Guardian looks like a weathered veteran. Kyle Reese admits he never expected a Terminator to age. Generation 2 tissue ages because it follows the human blueprint rather than bioplast perfection. Process of living tissue growth. Culture tanks. Industrial vats brim with synthetic blood plasma. Engineers submerged naked endoskeletons into the crimson bath, where stem cell matrices latch onto alloy and weave muscle fibers, dermis, and epidermis. In the early days, each sheath required more than a year to mature. Skynet lacked the patience, so it converted Dudley, a captured trauma surgeon, into a field cyborg tasked with emergency tissue upkeep. His portable gear kept the fragile flesh alive until large labs could finish the job. Molding! For mass production, Skynet slots skeletons into precision molds. Nutrient gel fills the cavities and hardens into textbook anatomy. Controlled temperature, oxygen, and hormone levels ensure that every eyebrow hair grows in the right spot. Once the cycle ends, technicians peel the finished form free and send it for behavioral programming. Secret Lab Crafting. In the T2 trilogy timeline, Serena Burns, herself an I-950 infiltrator, fabricates T-800 sheaths in the present day. She mixes contemporary chemical stocks with extracts of her enhanced blood. Each Model 101 phase takes 2 months from pour to polish. Later tweaks, extra accelerants, and matrix adjustments speed the schedule and expand the range of possible appearances. Field baths. Sometimes a damaged infiltrator must improvise. If local doctors can brew synthetic plasma, a Terminator will submerge itself in a deep pool and wait. Raw muscle sprouts first, then skin. Surgeons refine the rough flesh with scalpels and sutures. The full cycle takes several days and leaves enough scarring to tell a careful observer that something strange happened, yet it turns a crippled unit back into a passable spy. So yeah, it's quite evident that living tissue changed the war. Skynet developed it to help its own cause, but its most important soldier, the one supposed to lead Reese and Connor to their deaths, went rogue and changed the dynamics of the war in favor of the humans. That's the story of Marcus Wright, a machine with the heart of a human. Unfortunately, that's all we have for you guys this time, so we'll see you in the next one. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.